and welcome to this edition of the MadTech webcast. I'm obviously here in my bunker here in London, and today we have the pleasure of having Tom Simpson, VP of AdColony, over in Singapore. Tom, how are you?
Kieran, I'm fantastic, doing really well.
Good to see you, mate.
Indeed, good to see you too. How's the fried breakfast?
It was fabulous. Let's put it that way. Delivered. I'm having a cup of tea now. So Tom's on the webcast today because we like to keep things global, right? You know, we see a lot of webcasts, a lot of webinars, very American-centric. We like to talk to everybody around the world. So Tom's here today to give us a perspective of the APAC experience during the crisis, and we're going to talk about other things like gaming and what might come after this Corona and cookie crisis sort of abates. So Tom, let's talk about APAC. What is going on in the ad market there? Because obviously here we're seeing drops in spend. What's been going on in that part of the world?
Well, I think the first thing is we're in our third month of grappling with this. So, you know, we're a bit further ahead than the US and Europe in terms of our understanding of how it's going to impact the industry, our economies. And I think broadly, actually, we're feeling quite positive about the direction of travel. So, I mean, evidence from APAC is that we're able to control, mitigate what's going on. China has done that very successfly with some fairly authoritarian tactics, as you'd expect from China. But I mean, they're cautiously, you'd say they're coming out the other side. South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore have all successfully controlled it. I mean, not all of APAC is coping well. I mean, Indonesia, India, Australia on full lockdown at the moment, but broadly, we can see that APAC has dealt with it, or is dealing with it, and is able to control what's going on. And I think, one of the things that we're seeing in the US and Europe is that they're learning the lessons that maybe Asia learned with the SARS epidemic in 2003. So we're a little bit ahead of it, and we've understood that it is controllable. And I think what that kind of, being able to control the situation creates space for a level of normality. Once the initial kind of panic subsides, there is actually space for business, retail, commerce, for life to continue. Yeah. Obviously with a bit of a squeeze on it, but it's not quite as crazy as maybe the way you're feeling it is right now. So 3 months in,
just cut the cross there. Someone's just asked here what was the specific question. Now the question was relating to the impact of Corona on the ad market in APAC. Yeah. And just following on to that, from that, Tom, I mean, like certain industries are going to take a massive hit. Like travel is getting battered. So is that the case in Asia as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, broadly, China was the canary in the coal mine. We saw probably a 10 to 30% reduction in ad spend across the board in China, depending which figures you believe. But they're now still projecting 5% growth in ad spend for the year, 45% programmatic growth, which is relevant for everybody on this call. So I think, big impact in Q1, but it started to come back in Q2. And I think we see that, we will see that globally as well. I mean, Q2 is going to be tough.
It's going to be horrible. It's going to be shiny.
No, absolutely. Tough in a lot of the rest of APAC. But we've seen that there is a route out the other side. Brands are starting to get more positive, starting to make plans again. Winners and losers, yeah, absolutely. I mean, travel, luxury, F&B industries that are massively hit by what's going on. But there are industries and verticals that aren't so impacted. I mean, I think we've seen grocery, FMCG, staying broadly level after kind of initial kind of shock reaction and pulling money out, but actually now starting to come back in, starting to feel confident. If you look at what happened in the great financial crisis 2008, FMCG spend as a percentage of sales revenue stayed level. So, I mean, I think FMCG always, stays in there. We've seen tech staying in there. And then there have been upsides. So e-commerce, home entertainment, streaming, gaming. I mean, the gaming industry, we'll talk about gaming and advertising.
We'll talk about gaming in a minute, but I'm interested in the CPG stuff, right? So, and sort of like retail. Do you think that e-commerce, like there's been a lot of pieces around this crisis, that e-commerce is going to just basically become that last mile of people that e-commerce didn't really touch, is now becoming a reality for e-commerce. So how does, I mean, that seems to be an area that's doing pretty well. I mean, like I had my breakfast delivered this morning by Deliveroo, so it was very tasty, good full English with toast and all the trimmings.
Fantastic.
Good. But I'm talking about that specific, like e-commerce and sort of the delivery services. Are they the winners in this current environment, or will we just see a reset when things start to go back to normal?
I think there will be. I think we're looking at kind of structural shifts. I think they're big lasting changes. Yeah, I mean, e-commerce, any kind of online fulfillment is getting a boost right now. We're seeing more business move online. That's across, that's been across all of Asia Pacific. I think that will continue. Right,
and let's talk about gaming space for a minute, because that seems to be the real winner in this sort of environment. We've got Lindsay, who works for us, her other half works for a leading gaming company. So the spikes in traffic have been very, very significant over the last since the crisis started. So I want to talk about it from your perspective and the AdColony perspective. Let's talk about the broader sort of thesis around gaming, because for a long time it's been sort of considered brand unsafe, right? A lot of brands said, no, it's gaming, we don't involve in that, blah, blah, blah. But with the recent crisis, we've had keyword blocking of corona-related content on the major websites. They've had spikes, but the brands don't want to go there. Are we seeing this a mental shift in the way that brands are now starting to think about gaming, that it's entertainment as opposed to some kind of weird sort of, outlier of a sort of consumer trend?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what's going on with the crisis is bringing that to more brands' attentions. But I mean, fundamentally, gaming is a channel. Gaming, in terms of consumer time spent, is as big or bigger than social media in a lot of markets globally, and certainly in Asia Pacific, that's even more prevalent. So consumers are spending more time with gaming in some cases than social media. Gaming is, as you said, it's a fairly kind of neutral channel. We're looking at brand safety around social media. I mean, the idea that social media has got any kind of brand safety is
nonsense.
Nonsense. Quite a challenging concept for me. Gaming, it's a static professional environment. You know what game you're going into, so you understand what the brand safety considerations are of where you're placing your advertising. Consumer eyeballs at massive scale, and that's only being that's being driven harder by consumers spending more time at home. 30% increase in time spent on mobile. I mean, the stats, we did some research in Asia Pacific. We're seeing 45% increase in consumers playing mobile games multiple times a day. 66% have downloaded a new game since the beginning of the coronavirus epidemic. So yeah, I mean, huge uplift in mobile gaming time, but it's always been there anyway. So I mean, it's great that it's getting the attention now, but it's always been a huge story and under kind of utilized by brands.
But do you find that conversations are easier with brands? Because it used to be very, very sort of tough sell, but do you think it's becoming easier?
I think it's been becoming easier. I think it's, we've seen a transition over the past couple of years. So I think the early adopters, the FMCGs, maybe some of the smarter tech brands have got in there, understood that gaming is fundamentally just a brand safe, reach channel, get tons of eyeballs at scale, target using data, and kind of, another point on that, gaming is broadly app based, so you can still target using device IDs. So, I mean, we've seen this transition over the past couple of years. It's not something that is new, but what is new is the amount of buzz that we're getting. We are seeing brands coming to us and asking for gaming strategies. How can we leverage on this? And I think a lot of that is being prompted by what people are talking about in the news, media. There's a story around it, isn't it? So
is there a branding story there, or is it more performance? Like, are they looking for the ability to do reach and frequency and do branding on that channel, or is it basically more performance led, more sort of KPI driven?
It's branding. I mean,
Right.
it's just eyeballs at scale, man.
Okay.
You know, it's
Okay.
just a reach buy.
Yeah. Cool. So there's people asking some questions here. So I like to kind of switch between some of the conversations and the questions. It's all about interaction here. The audience need us, you know. So let me see. Who's Oh yeah, so basically, there's a good question here. So how brands can effectively leverage mobile gaming channels to reach audience during the pandemic? So let's talk about that. That's a good one.
I mean, it's to be honest, the answer is the same as they've always been able to. I mean, mobile gaming has got huge reach in most markets against all sorts of different consumers. So I mean, I think there are a lot of myths out there around mobile gaming that maybe it's just about teenage boys in bedrooms or something like that. Mobile gaming
sounds awful.
Well, absolutely, yeah. I mean, let's not delve any further into that topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, mobile gaming is 50% male, 50% female. We see as many Gen Zs as we do kind of Gen Xs. Very kind of it's just a broad reach medium. So opportunities to reach consumers at scale. Some things that are specific to mobile gaming probably are, first of all, rewarded video.
Yeah.
The kind of the value exchange economy. So the difference between maybe OTT or YouTube, where it's a pre-roll and the consumer has an ad pushed at them. Watch this ad for at least 6 seconds, Mr. Consumer. That's it. The difference between a gaming environment where a consumer will reach a natural break point in a game that they're playing, maybe run out of lives, need a new outfit, whatever it is, and will be asked, would you like to pay for this? Or would you, do you want to watch a video and get this item, get this power up, get these points, whatever it is, for free? So the kind of the value exchange, much more 21st century conversation rather than pushing the advertising at people. It's what you like advertising, so much more respectful. So that's something that's really important in mobile gaming. I think the other part of it is, interactive video, dynamic video, playables. So the engagement that you're able to drive in gaming, which is something, maybe different again to OTT, where it might be on a screen the other side of a room, or, other flatter kind of video delivery channels.
Yeah, so I mean, gaming's obviously doing quite well. I mean, I think this could be the big breakout for gaming itself. But I'm curious to know your opinion around other channels that are doing well. I mean, like, out of home has obviously got hammered because nobody's out of home at the minute because everybody's locked down. But something like connected TV, right? CTV seems to be hot as anything right now. So you think there'll be money shifting, like gaming, we'll see money shift into that channel as well? Is that something we'll see in APAC? Because I'm quite, from an APAC perspective, right? I mean, CTV is obviously a big conversation point in the US. I'm just curious about what you think about it in the APAC region.
I mean, money is already moving into, OTT, VOD, whatever we want to call it. I think there's a huge conversation in the marketing community around OTT and VOD already. So I'm not sure that what's happening now is necessarily going to accelerate spend into that area. I think spend is moving super fast into that area anyway. Natural transition from linear TV into, dynamically inserted advertising in digital TV environments. I think that's happening anyway, man. It's part of the programmatic is everything story. Yeah.
And from a publisher perspective, I mean, obviously your publishers are a bit different from the traditional sort of web-based publishers. Are they struggling the way they are in the UK and the US, particularly around the Corona keyword blocking? Is that been something that you've heard of in the region? And if not, how are they kind of getting around that? Are they just basically, because I wrote a piece yesterday, a blog post about how you could, as a publisher, how you can basically take advantage of this traffic bump, right? So let's talk about yourselves, casual gaming. Why couldn't a publisher license casual gaming and push some of that traffic? Because I believe that a lot of people are hitting Corona fatigue now. I mean, even my mother, who's completely obsessed by either Brexit or this stuff, has just lost interest in it. Like she doesn't even watch the news anymore because it's just like doom and gloom, the end of days. But I'm just thinking about from publishers in the APAC region, what's their experience been? Drop in revenue, or have they mitigated against that?
I think there's a natural kind of tendency by brands to avoid COVID content. And I think we've seen similar sort of stories around keyword blocking as we've seen in the US and Europe. I mean, in a mobile gaming environment, that's not relevant. You don't tend to have a lot of COVID-19 content in mobile gaming. So, I mean, as far as our publishers go, they have an easy time of it. I don't think it's something that's being mitigated. I think there's a conversation, ongoing with Double Verify, IAS, and marketers about how we deal with it. I mean, fundamentally, it's all about funding a free press, funding, the internet, the world that we want to see. So it's a conversation that needs to be driven.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here from someone who's talking about Sainsbury's are using rewarded video in gaming in London right now, promoting online food orders. Is that insensitive given the current environment? Where do you draw the line in terms of how you can brand in this environment? I guess you have to be super careful. We don't see Corona, doing a lot of promotion at the minute, which, how much brand equity
I thought that their sales have gone back up, Kieran.
Corona?
Yeah.
People are drinking it because it's the Corona beer, like, you know what I mean? There's an almost ironic element to it, like.
I know, it's brilliant, but maybe that's all that's left. So people have got to drink Corona.
Yeah, that's true. There's been some
on the shelves. Again, we did some research, and lots of people have done research around this. Somewhere between 70 and 90% of consumers think that brands should continue advertising and continue communicating. So consumers don't broadly have an issue around advertising, around brands continuing to communicate in these environments. Obviously, you've got to be sensitive around what's going on, but I think to another extent, as you were saying, we hit a level where everybody's kind of had enough. I don't know. I'm kind of almost a bit tired of communications around COVID, research around COVID, brands saying, well, in this new world, we know that you're sitting at home, but while you're sitting at home, why don't you enjoy doing this? It's, at some point, this just becomes the new normal. It becomes as boring as it ever has been. We slowly crawl out the other side of it, which we will. And brands, just need to carry on talking to consumers, and it just, the world just keeps turning.
How long do you think it will take for us to get out of this? Because this is the concern that we all have at the minute, right? Is there a recession coming? Is there, we are probably the most exposed in terms as an industry to a recession, because the first thing that gets cut is potentially advertising. So do you think that there is a recession coming? And if so, is it short and sharp, or will we have to kind of go on as we are at the minute over the next 12 months? As you say, we normalize this behavior, right? Until a vaccine found or something else. But this is going to change a lot of, human behavior, psychological behavior. So what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a few scenarios for how this plays out, and there's a non-zero chance that the entire kind of global ecosystem collapses and we're fighting for food in the street. So, that might happen, but we're not. I mean, thinking in those terms, it's a very small chance. Really, we're either looking at something that's V-shaped or at one end, or bathtub shaped. I think both of those are probably a bit unrealistic. I'm not so negative that it's I think it's going to drag on for a few years. I think it probably looks a bit like a tick or a Nike swoosh. That's kind of the best analogy that I've seen. I think there's an immediate drop off. Brands very concerned initially, panic, shock, pull money from the market. But I think they cautiously start coming back in. And we've already seen that in China. We're seeing that in other Asia Pacific markets where they've had a month or two to digest the initial shock of what's going on. And then, they cautiously start to come back in. I think Q2 will be tough, but we'll see a recovery over Q3 and Q4. I mean, a couple of kind of points on that. Asia is a little bit different. I mean, the first one, emerging Asia is a multi-decade story that is not going to be disrupted by, this kind of crisis. it's an ongoing story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the second part is when you look at digital penetration in a lot of Asia Pacific, you're maybe, we're still kind of 20-30% ad spend in digital. So more mature markets, US, Europe, you're already 60% ad spend in digital. If you look at what happened in the GFC, back in 2008, ad spend down 20-30% overall, digital pretty much flat. So we might be in Asia in a kind of, GFC type pricing where digital ad spend is protected because it's measurable, it's controllable.
Yeah.
Advertisers shift money from traditional into digital. That might still be there in the US and Europe to an extent. I think it's easy. Digital spend is more defensible than traditional spend broadly.
Yeah. Although we could have a whole new show around that because of the cookie, going
well.
But just
a good thing, Kieran. It's a good.
I know.
Thing.
We'll go on to that in 2 seconds. I just wanted one question because it's actually quite interesting. I was going to ask this myself. It was about what information you know about your new audience, right? So, if it's not just younger kids, how are you doing your targeting and data is used for 21st century value exchange? I mean, that was a question I was going to ask. Do you segment on games? Obviously, Candy Crush is predominantly a female audience. Predominantly, I don't really know. Yeah. But is that how you segment on that space within the gaming ecosystem? How do you do all that?
Okay. I mean, there are a range of data points that we have access to that allow us to segment. I mean, obviously, we can see the games that consumers are in, and we understand what the demographic profile of those games are. We also have access to location information. At the moment, not so useful because we can't see, where people are going and kind of infer what they're interested in. But we also partner with brands or third parties to port in, other direct data, demographic data, payment data, and we can pull that in. In a mobile world, it is very, very simple just kind of pivot around a device ID, much easier than pivoting around a cookie.
Okay, that's good. Let's just move on to the next sort of conversation. What happens next, right? Post-corona, post-cookie, actually. Are we going to see a sort of flattening of sort of supply chain, right? So some questions here about header bidding and first-party auction, but do you see a situation where we're going to see less, people involved in the supply chain, right? Do we really need that SSP, or do we really need that DSP, or do we really need that piece of tech? I mean, what do you see coming down the line in terms of that, and what innovation what we're going to see coming our way? Because it feels to me there hasn't really been an awful lot of innovation for a number of years. Like we've got a decade of some, innovation from when RTV was sort of like come out of New York in 2007, 2008, and the programmatic ecosystem has exploded. But, we're still addicted to third-party cookies. We're still addicted to, the old IDs, right? So what happens post that? Can we see a whole new world of innovation coming? And what do you see as exciting areas?
Yeah, absolutely, Kieran. I think that's it. I'm excited. I think we should all be excited about this beyond the initial pain. And I think there is going to be, there will be pain in the short term. There will be, industry players who are not adding value, who will find it difficult to see a way through this. But I think ultimately it's going to lead to innovation. It's an opportunity to move on, as you said, from a period of stagnation, in our industry, to accept realities like the cookie is gone. The cookie is gone. We need to get over it. We need to move on. I mean, one of the things I think that's held us back as an industry for the longest time is post-view cookie tracking.
Post-view, which is dead.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, the crack cocaine that is post-view cookie tracking and looking at performance around that, it's just...
But post-view means that, I don't think people realize this, right? When we talk about this. Post-view means the display becomes ineffective in many ways because you can't measure it, right? I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about this, and I said, measurement is the biggest casualty here, right? You cannot measure how a display campaigns work because you can't drop that cookie, which then gives you sort of a portion of that conversion. And how do you run campaigns? Like the post view has been, I can't believe that nobody's written about this. Like, it would be the most fundamental underpinning of our industry, display anyway, digital display, post-view, right? It's dead. It's effectively dead, right? So what do we do next? Like, but
I mean, the problem is, and I guess maybe the fear that we've got is that post-view attribution was always absolute rubbish and massively overvalued display.
Yeah.
Advertising, certainly in terms of driving performance, massively overvalued retargeting. I think those are things we all know are true, but now we're going to have to accept them. We're going to have to move on to a world where we measure real outcomes, real stuff that really matters to marketers. It's going to be an opportunity to move on as an industry, to start to build an industry that, a programmatic industry, an automated digital industry that genuinely adds value for brands rather than just says it does.
Do you think we're going to have to revisit this measurement thing pretty quickly as an industry? Because it feels to me that we might have to move towards a panel-based system, right, for display, right? And here's my theory. You want to hear this? It's pretty good, right? So someone could buy Ghostery or buy IO, the ad blockers, who have like hundreds of millions of installations all over the world on all different browsers, and run a panel across all of that. And that would be a good way to measure display and video activity online. How about that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, panel-based measurement is the way forward. It's worked for TV for years. I think there's not a lot. You look at TV as an industry that has never needed kind of one-to-one addressability, kind of real-time measurement, whatever it is we mean when we say that. But an industry that has scaled massively and has genuinely driven value for brands and marketers for more than half a decade.
Yeah.
There's a lot that we can learn from that, both in terms of how we measure, but also in terms of how we package and sell. I mean, the idea of selling ratings, of selling, selling on a cost per rating point basis, accepting that there's an element of wastage, but only paying for what actually hits your audience. I think those are ideas that that are transferable.
But that's the opportunity, Tom. I really don't see an awful lot happening. It's very frustrating, right? When I've accepted, right? Like, we run programmatic events. I've accepted the cookie's been dead for at least a year, right? I've told people, get ready and get innovating, right? Stop trying to save this thing. It's unsavable. It's unsavable. But instead, take that innovation that ad tech has and apply it, right? Like, what can we do to solve these problems? Real problems, right? Particularly measurement, particularly attribution, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I think we've got 2 minutes left, Tom. I thought that was really good, actually. I enjoyed our little chat this morning. Wow. So let's just briefly then, towards the end here, let's talk about what you could see happening just from the AdColony perspective in Q2, Q3, Q4 for the rest of the year. Like, you see, there's obviously opportunity there. Like, so how are you seeing things panning out for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking, we're looking good here in Asia Pacific. As we talked about earlier, I think brands are beginning to get their heads around the opportunity in gaming. Probably, one of the last territories that brands are yet to properly get across. So yeah, I mean, that's a hugely positive thing. Lots of trends driving that direction. We talked about the death of the cookie. You can still target around device IDs. Mobile gaming is in apps, so we can still do the clever stuff with data that we've always done. And huge opportunities for creativity, engagement with consumers, with interactive video, playables, tons of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good time. And, honestly, for us, there's never been a better time to, to talk about mobile gaming. The consumer behavior is really, pushing in that direction, and it's something that people are talking about. So,
all right, Tom. Thank you for your time, my friend, and stay safe. And I like to keep these webcasts to half an hour because nobody needs to sit and watch, somebody for an hour and a half. That's ridiculous. But thank you for your time. That was great insight, Tom. And we'll see you soon, hopefully over in APAC in the next couple of quarters. So be safe.
Good stuff, mate. Stay safe. Fantastic. I could have gone on for a lot longer.
Of course, and we could easily go on for a lot longer, but it's nice to keep these things short and sweet, Okay. Tom, we will do it again. Don't worry, we'll get you on again in a couple of weeks to see how things are going. And to all our viewers, if we can call them viewers, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and tune in next week for the MadTech webcast. Thank you, guys.